Back in the good old days, a bottle of claret was 11.5% alcohol, or was it? A bottle of Burgundy was quite often hermitaged, and the reason for that was they needed to get a bit more weight and flavour and alcohol into it, because often these wines were slightly lighter and thinner. Average alcohol levels have undoubtedly risen, but is that perhaps more to do with people's changing taste than because they have actually naturally risen? The one tends to lead the other. We've seen that from consumer demand, increased producing regions have blossomed. We're all rightly very aware of the challenges around alcohol and the awareness we have to apply to it. We've got to be responsible in all aspects of the way we approach the sale and consumption of alcohol. Drink driving has moved forward enormously in terms of people's perceptions of unacceptable, irresponsible behaviour. And I think where we're getting to is a place where people are now talking about moderation rather than exclusion. And I think that lower alcohol wines are increasingly moving towards an area where consumers are understanding the importance of moderation. People quite often turn around and say, why can't you just drink less? And I think for a lot of people that has become the way in which they manage their moderation. But I think there are still occasions when people would like to consume more liquid, and if they can in some way manage their consumption through lower levels of alcohol, that's to be encouraged. Though technically, I think this is Frankenstein's monster to a lot of people. The idea that you can technically alter wine. Wine should be a completely natural product, totally uninterfered with, is still, for many people, the way in which they view this product. So why have the alcohol levels in wine risen? I think most of you know this. That's the CO2 percentage of the atmosphere figure on the right-hand side. We know it's getting warmer. The New World has increased its participation in total sales. We've seen improved viticultural techniques, which mean that people are much better at getting the grapes off the vine at optimum ripeness, which leads to optimum alcohol levels. We've seen hang times extended. There's some wonderful work done in Argentina about maintaining levels of sugar ripeness, but increasing all the other aspects of the organoleptic quality of the grape. And I think it's to be commended, but we do tend to end up with the more involved the winemaker becomes in increasing the quality, the higher the alcohol tends to end up being. Consumers still like the flavours and the taste profiles associated with bigger wines. We mustn't get away from the fact that there is something in alcohol that actually tastes very nice. Anyone who has tried no alcohol red wine knows that it doesn't taste very nice. Therefore, we have to try and remember this when we're working towards the future. But can we change consumers' tastes? What do consumers say? Well, Amanda went into it in far more detail and far more technically than I ever could. But these are some of the things that consumers have said to us when we've spoken with them about lower alcohol. And it's confusing. Aren't they just a bit naff? They're a bit of this social leper status associated with the person who drinks iceberg on an evening out. It doesn't taste very nice is the most common. And I think there's something to be focused on as we go through. Another response you often get from people is, well, this bottle of Australian Shiraz is actually 14.5%. Ooh, is it really that strong? I hadn't noticed. I suspect people do notice, they're just becoming increasingly used to it. And a point I'll come back to again, which is, why can't I just have my favourite brand, but just a little less strong? And I will emphasise that point when we get to the end of this. There was a comment earlier about Lambrini in Amanda's comments. I saw it down the bottom left-hand corner as being with a big red cross beside it saying no. I think actually what we have to remember and get off our high horses about slightly is that to an awful lot of people, Lambrini is not wine. It happens to be a very potable form of alcohol that they enjoy, they like it. It serves a different purpose to high-end, extremely complex wines that are often sold. We mustn't lose sight of the fact that we are in the alcohol beverage category. We must spend as much time understanding how consumers think about the product and whether they actually decide it's wine or not for themselves. What actually sells in multiple grocers? One of these clicky ones. I'll click them all. What actually sells in multiple grocers at the moment? What's the trend? As you can see here, basically, these blobs here show you that on this scale that we've got the current number of SKUs within our business. On this scale, value growth. You can see that quite clearly rosé is growing enormously. The big, full-flavoured, full-style wines are in decline, both in terms of sales and in terms of listings. Medium dry. For medium dry, think fruit-driven wines. And we have to understand that big wines, as we define them, are declining. Consumers' acceptance of big wines is going down slowly. Fruity wines are growing, there's no doubt about it at all. Simpler is actually more popular than complex. There is no doubt that consumers are beginning to say that rosé delivers what they want. Why is it that people like rosé particularly? Actually, it's something to do with the fact that most of the rosé we sell is 10.5% alcohol and is actually quite high in sugar. Customers aren't clear with us ever, though, and I think that's the point. You've got to ask them and ask them again and be absolutely clear what it is they're saying, as this case is an example of. It's not new news, I'd also point out. What I've done is I've lifted this slide verbatim, literally, dropped it into my presentation today, from a presentation I gave to the Winemakers Federation of Australia in November 2007. And so I have been banging on about this for some time. It didn't go down very well in Australia, I have to say. I was told, and not very politely by some people, to go away. I was accused of being a jumped-up dog food buyer, which I wasn't sure if that's a compliment or not, but it was, amongst other things. The gist of the message was don't interfere, don't get involved, don't tell us how to do it, don't tell us what Australian wine should taste like. And I think the point I was trying to make at the time, which was clearly misinterpreted, was that I'm saying there is a trend that consumers are telling us they are moving towards. If you don't follow it, you are going to become isolated.